most deeply satisfying accomplishments in life take at least 5 years to achieve. There was one thing that I was really struggling but trying to embody. I think without this, I don't know if we can be as consistent. When you say that you're going to do something and you sort of fixate your sort of mind to it, there are also, not to mention like a huge flood of doubt and resistance that come up. If you think about anything that you truly want in your heart, I bet you that you want that thing to last. So, welcome to another Teesside Thursday episode. I am your host and resident artist on YouTube. This podcast is basically a podcast where we talk a little bit more personal topics in terms of growing an art studio business, managing personal life, work, goals, and also we're going to touch on, I think, very human, emotional aspects of life as well. Because for me personally, everything in my life feeds back into my art, and my art also feeds back into life, and everything is sort of like this cyclical process. And I find so much inspiration and just aliveness through many different things in my life. I recently made a huge transition a year ago now, basically, of quitting my 9-to-5 job to start again in my 30s and basically pursue an artistic career and to build an art studio business. So I've learned so many things along the way, and I'm still learning so much now. And this podcast has actually been a really cozy and safe space for me to also be able to process a lot of the things that I'm learning, the emotions that I'm feeling. And I hope that in sharing my story with you, you will also be able to not only spend some cozy time with me with tea, but also just to realize that you're not alone. And that's also the main reason why I started this podcast, because whenever I'm going through something, it always makes me feel a lot better knowing and hearing someone else's story. And no matter how sort of difficult a situation might be, from hearing their difficulties, it actually makes me realize that we're all having this like shared human experience. And I think that that is what's so great about the internet these days, is you can also sort of find narratives similar or even different to your own that you can sort of learn from and also sort of take things away. But this isn't a podcast where, I'm sort of like this, I don't know, like mentor teacher telling you to do X, Y, or Z, or that there is only one way to do something, because that's literally what I feel like is the opposite to living a creative life. It really closes down so many conversations about, just having like this open approach to life and also learning and figuring things out along the way, which makes life more interesting and exciting, as painful and as frustrating that might be. And the reality is no one really knows like what is quote unquote 100% right. So think of me as your artist friend, sitting down with a nice cup of tea and sort of just downloading and sharing in a raw, honest way about pretty much sort of what's happening and what I'm learning in my life at the moment, that's not only feeding me into, my personal life, but also in developing this career in my 30s. Without further ado, let's jump into what I'm drinking this week. So, this week is really special cup of tea. It is Myanmar Oolong tea, and it has a really beautiful packaging. I just want to show you. This tea I got from my recent trip to my own country of Myanmar, aka Burma, and I love it so much. There's nothing like going back to your own country, like no matter how many places I've visited and how exciting new places have been, it does not compare to going back to your home birth country and smelling the air and talking to the people and realizing that, there's a whole part of me that exists in that country. And when I was there were so many parts of me that I didn't have to explain or I didn't have to justify. And that felt really nice. That was a side topic, but let me show you the tea packaging. So, let me cover my face. So this is basically a scenery of a place in Myanmar called Inlay Lake. And it's really beautiful. If you have a chance to go one day, you definitely should. And yeah, so these men and women in Inlay Lake, it's a huge lake and it's quite famous for tourism there. And they pretty much like live on the lake, and they have villages and farms that are like built on the lake. And they have this like rowing technique for the boats where sometimes like they actually use their feet to catch basically the fish. So the reason why they're using the feet is so that they have one hand free to sort of stabilize themselves on the boat and also help with the rowing, but the other foot that they're using to actually catch the fish. I learned that recently. I thought that was very fascinating, and I'm actually going to keep the packaging. It's the same thing as the actual can, but I don't know. I have this thing where I just keep little bits like this. Like it reminds me of Myanmar, it reminds me of Burma, and I really don't want to forget the memories that happened whilst I was there. So yeah, I've kept even the top of the packaging here, and it's grown in Myanmar, and that is pretty much what I'll be having as we talk about our topic this week. So naturally, because it's the end of the year, I've been, reflecting throughout my day back and forth on sort of the things that I've done well this year, the things that I could have improved on, the things that I really struggled with, and sort of what to take away for the next year. And including this episode, I thought that in the next 3 or 4 Teesside Thursday episodes, we would touch on various sort of subtopics that are related to setting goals, mindset, sort of, just have like a little reflective moment together. So I was thinking about this, and the first thing that I thought was really, really foundational to my whole learning all of this year, in terms of growth in my sort of skills artistically, but also in terms of how I think about, entrepreneurship and business, and also in terms of fitness and personal life. Like, there was one thing that I was really, really struggling but trying to embody. And I didn't realize it until now, like what exactly that was. And I think that this is really important, like probably the most important thing. I think goals and setting sort of goals and resolutions are actually secondary to what I'm about to share, because I think without this, I don't know if we can be as consistent with our sort of mindset and objectives, and also just personal fulfillment when it comes to, living out your year. Because as you probably already know from 2025, at least I did anyway, like what I realized was, I can set a goal, not a problem. I can say, I'm going to do this, but there are always things that come up, whether it be personal, health-wise, mental health, physical health. There are things that happen that are outside of our control. That happened to me as well. And also, when you say that you're going to do something and you sort of fixate your sort of mind to it, there are also, not to mention like a huge flood of doubt and resistance that come up because we're dealing with a part of us that feels a little bit like an imposter at first, feels a little bit like you're sort of dipping into a new territory, but that territory still feels unfamiliar, still doesn't feel like our sort of main character yet, the character that we've known to be for so many years in the past. So there are not only external challenges, but also internal challenges. So then what makes a year sustainable in terms of working bit by bit towards our goals? And when I say goals, by the way, I mean for everything, whether it be mindset, personal, fitness, whatever goal it is that you have on the planet Earth, whether it's travel goals, whether it's like saving money and for a specific purpose goal, like it doesn't matter. The thing that has sort of stuck with me this entire year that I really wanted to embody was something that my grandma would always repeat to us when we were young, and especially sort of, even in our teens and in our adult years. She would often say, slow and steady wins the race. And I don't know why, but I was so confused with that phrase all year. I had this sort of huge sense of drive and motivation, and I thought that if I had high amount of drive and motivation, I thought that that alone could sustain me for most of my year because, surely I was motivated, surely I was passionate, surely that would sort of keep me going throughout the year. But surprisingly, no. Surprisingly, no. What I've realized through the setbacks that I've had is actually something that I don't know if I've heard a lot of people talk about or if anyone talk about it yet, but the fact that like if you have like high ambition and if you have like sort of high drive and sort of like this high achiever focused mindset, sometimes that can actually sort of derail you from your yearly progress, because sometimes the sort of payoff for having that sort of mindset can be that you actually feel like because you have that drive and because you have that motivation, then that should equal the results that you get. And sometimes we can get into that spiral and trap of feeling like, why isn't it happening yet? I am exerting, 100% of my effort into this thing. Why isn't it happening? Right? And that's the thing with sort of having drive and having any sort of goal or ambition is it can also be detrimental. I'm not saying that, we shouldn't have goals and ambitions. We absolutely, it's a good thing to have goals and ambition. What I'm saying is sort of how do we, deal with that journey along the way? Because I think goals and ambition is something we carry in our heart. But what will carry our bodies and our minds through to reach our ultimate, quote unquote, like destination is the fact that it will be done in a slow and steady pace. And that is what I found has been the most sustainable and lasting approach to fulfilling goals. And in this particular point of juncture in our conversation, I want to interject a quote that I came across like about 5 years ago. And it really hit me. Like, it really hit me to the core. And I haven't been able to live by it. But I realized in my heart to be honest and true. So I kept it. And I want to share it with you. Yes, I found it. Okay. So actually, I've forgotten where this quote comes from. So I suggest if you want to look up the source, just type it, and I'm sure like it will come up on Google. So this is the quote: "Most deeply satisfying accomplishments in life take at least 5 years to achieve. This can include building a business, cultivating a loving relationship, writing a book, getting in the best shape of your life, raising a family, and more. 5 years is a long time. It is much slower than most of us would like. If you accept the reality of slow progress, you have every reason to take action today. If you resist the reality of slow progress, 5 years from now, you'll simply be 5 years older and still looking for a shortcut. And still looking for a shortcut." That hits me right in the heart. I don't know about you, but that really hits me. Most big, deeply satisfying accomplishments in life take at least 5 years to achieve. This can include building a business, cultivating a loving relationship, writing a book, getting in the best shape of your life, raising a family, and more. 5 years is a long time. It is much slower than most of us would like. If you accept the reality of slow progress, you have every reason to take action today. If you resist the reality of slow progress, 5 years from now, you'll simply be 5 years older and still looking for a shortcut. Isn't that crazy? For me, like, that's very powerful. And I kept it as a wallpaper for like a whole, I think, year. And I still couldn't figure it out like 5 years ago. But now I think the sort of the main parts of that quote and that learning is sort of sinking into me more deeply. So I'm thankful of myself 5 years ago for keeping this quote and keeping it as my wallpaper, because I think it sort of circled around in my, subconscious. And I think that's why I kept thinking about my grandma's saying, slow and steady wins the race, all this year, even when I was feeling so much like frustration inside me. So, so let's sort of dissect this a little bit. 5 years. That is a huge span of time for someone like me who is such a highly motivated person and can be so focused on this, singular objective. and can have the drive to push that, push my efforts forward. But what happens when you don't see the results straight away? And this is exactly what this quote says. It takes longer, to develop a voice and style that is uniquely yours in, I don't know, paintings, drawings, video making, any creative endeavor can take a lifetime to achieve. And it probably is even more than 5 years, but I think 5 years is actually a good starting point to start to like shift our mindset into like this like longer thinking approach. And this is sort of what I want to sort of like share, like, for example, right? Because I'm going to use a very specific, very obvious, and very transparent example in my life right now. So in terms of fitness, I've gotten a lot into going to the gym and lifting weights and training and eating whole foods and eating very nutritiously like most of this past year in 2025. And still, I have not reached the sort of strength and aesthetic goal, and also even just like the enjoyment that I would like, in the gym, and sort of also in my life. I want fitness to be more holistic, but I haven't able to sort of quite get there. But that is also what most of us will also have, I think, a lot of fitness goals and health goals coming into the new year, because naturally that is what happens, after Christmas, like we've consumed a lot of food and we're now sort of like wanting to, I don't know, like do something about that. But what if we could have healthier habits around how we indulge and how we eat food, and also how we train, and what if it can be more holistic, right? So that's the sort of mindset that I want to develop more and more. So with that being said, like with sort of building muscle and also like learning to do different exercises in the gym, learning to use different machines and getting your body in like the correct form and things like that, like what I'm finding is that actually takes a lot longer for the muscle memory, also for my nervous system to sort of adapt to these sort of movements. Because what I've learned is if you don't give your nervous system the time to adapt, then what's going to happen is it's going to lead to injuries, it's going to lead to setbacks, and that means that you are sort of push backwards even more, because now you're injured and you can't go to the gym, and you have to like take time to recover. And so then I thought to myself, like, what kind of mindset would I need to have to sort of be able to consistently be training for most of my weeks throughout the year? And it came down to really this one thing, that I just had to accept that, if I want to achieve a certain level of fitness, a certain level of muscle maturity, then I'm gonna just have to accept that it will most likely take 5 years. So then that has changed my approach in even like the way I approach my training in my week to week, month to month. Because now instead of, thinking, oh my God, like, I'm going to try and lift as hard as I can like this week, I'm now thinking, first of all, for the first like 12 weeks, I'm going to master the correct form. I'm not even going to think about adding in like weight. I want to think about in every exercise, I want to think about how my muscles are responding to the movement, and if I can feel the muscle that this exercise is supposed to work. I want to focus on that for the first 12 weeks. 12 weeks is 3 months. That's already a quarter of the year. And previously with my mindset, I would have been like 3 months to just focus on this one thing. Gosh, like that's too long. I don't want to do it, right? But now I think, well, if it's going to take me 5 years anyway, why don't I try not to injure myself so that, I can come into the gym on a weekly basis regularly so that I can feel good uh, throughout my day, so that I can actually have like this very energetic, vibrant, creative day, instead of feeling like I'm, like injured and I can't do anything. I can't move and now I'm stuck in the house and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's sort of like this approach, and instead of, counting like, oh my God, have I done 10,000 steps a day? And, this whole sort of getting into this, just go for a walk outside the house on the treadmill, go for a walk around the neighborhood, go for hikes like with my partner, like just enjoy. Because if I have 5 years to build this, then I might as well enjoy, and I might as well not beat myself up so much about it. And we're humans, right? We're not meant to be robots. And I try to remind myself of that. And so that is, an example, right? And it's the same thing with, content creation, and also developing my painting skills and developing my art studio business. The sort of doubt and the resistance that will, I think, come, because it definitely is present for me too, which is something I'm trying to actively be mindful of and aware of, is when you start to take this like slow and steady approach, then your mind like sort of tricks you into thinking that you're not going to have any progress, that you're not going to see any progress. But that isn't true. Honestly, I think that it's the opposite. I think the more and this there's this quote that we like everybody always says, right? Like I'm gonna try to subquote it, but I'm sure I'll get it wrong. But it's okay. Like it's sort of like, it's something like, we overestimate what we can achieve in 1 year, but we something like that. Let me just look it up. Oh yes, good old Google. So it's apparently by Bill Gates, and it says most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. So it's like that 5 year quote again. And this happens because, so this is Google saying this. This happens because we focus too much on short term effort, neglecting the power of consistent small actions, compound interest, and the exponential growth that makes massive long term change possible, leading to burnout in the short term and surprising progress over a decade. So I think that's what the sort of, impatient short-term thinking brings about, is this idea of burnout, just like injuries that you might get in fitness and going to the gym because you're sort of overdoing it. It can be that sort of, perspective. Like if you overwork, you're going to might lead to health problems, and that is not sustainable. And if you think about anything that you truly want in your heart, I bet you that you want that thing to last. Like you want that thing to be lasting. Good health. What if it didn't last for just a year, but it lasted for the entire sort of 20, 30, 40, 50 years of your life, until, you're old and gray and wobbly? Like, what if? What if the career that you're building is lasting? There is magic that happens when we sort of, I think, surrender to this sort of way of approach and thinking. And I think you also let life kind of like work its magic on you as well, this faith and trust that happens. I think we will be able to develop more of that too. Like, for high achievers like me, I just want to say that, it's okay that your effort on a sort of day-to-day basis is something that isn't causing you to be tired and causing you to burn out, because being tired and burning out doesn't equal to working hard and doesn't equal to achieving your goals. Working hard can actually mean that you are putting more thought into a task that you're doing. And thinking about something in a certain way could be an example of working hard. If you wake up feeling fresh the next day, just know that you deserve it. Like, you absolutely deserve it. And don't beat yourself up over it. Yeah. I forgot to have my tea. I have a therapy session coming up literally in about, I think, like 15 minutes. So I'm gonna have to bring this tea there with me. Oh wow. It's so good. It's lukewarm now, but it's still really good. So I'm actually going to end the first sort of, subtopic in terms of goal setting and resolutions and things like that here. And I hope you'll join me in the next Teesside Thursday episode. And if you're tuning in, then drop me a comment below. I'd love to know actually like where you're watching this from, like what country you're watching it from. And if you're drinking a hot drink, then share with me like what hot drink you're drinking and how does it taste like. And also if you have any tea recommendations, then let me know in the comments. And yeah, feel free to share anything else that comes across your mind. If you have other tips and sort of mindset shifts that has helped you this year, then share it below so that other people can also like learn and we can learn from each other. But yeah, that is it. So I will see you in a future Teesside Thursday episode. Bye.
I'm hushing the dog on the chain. I'm running up stones on the edge of the bank. Rally the troops for another refrain. I sing this softly to myself. I sing this softly